Hello everybody, welcome back to Silverstone for our final racing action on this Silverstone 500 Saturday. It is the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship's first race of the weekend, and the cars are lining up on the grid now ahead of their green flag lap and what should be, hopefully, a competitive fourth race of the season. 25 minutes will be the journey for the Ginetta GT Championship drivers, who certainly put on a show at Oulton Park last time out. In fact, I would argue that they provided possibly the best Ginetta racing of the weekend, actually. Despite being small in number, these cars are very, very spectacular, very evenly matched drivers, and hopefully here at Silverstone we'll see more of the same. The conditions are about the same really as they've been all afternoon. After the rain this morning, it's dried out nicely this afternoon. It's still cold, it's still windy, but it is a dry racetrack and a circuit that provides many opportunities to overtake, and hopefully drivers will be able to utilise that over the course of the 25 minutes. The grid, as you can see, is being formed. They will then be released out onto a green flag lap, and then we'll get the race started. So plenty of time still to set the scene. And after Oulton Park last time out, 3 races were held, and it was Mckenzie Douglass who came out with the early advantage within the pro category anyway, over Garlick and Luke Garlick, who were part of a brilliant photo finish in, I think, the 3rd race at Oulton on Easter Monday. But 2 victories for Mckenzie Douglass, 1 for Garlick. Means that Mckenzie is 11 points clear in the championship. Garlick is then a further 2 ahead of his brother Luke, with Alex Toth-Jones 4th in the points. And good to have all of those players back again here at Silverstone. So the cars released onto the grid. Qualifying earlier on this morning saw Luke Garlick actually get the better of Mckenzie Douglass. Luke Garlick sits on pole position for this first race of the weekend, and we'll be keen to try and convert that into an early race lead, try and make a bit of a break of it, because actually that's kind of what the story was at Oulton Park. The leader not really ever able to get away, and that produced some of this really good racing, but ultimately a little bit of frustration, certainly in the first couple of races. Mckenzie Douglass having to really fight his way through to the front, but he did eventually get there, claiming those 2 race victories. Luke Garlick, though, took the pole position in qualifying this morning, and he was about a 1/10.5 in the end quicker than Mckenzie. Xentek Motorsport ahead of Fox Motorsport Row 1. Row 2, Nick White and Harry Mangan. Harry Mangan making a welcome return back to Ginetta Racing, with Matt Shaw and Ben McKenna next. Matt Shaw, moving up from the GT Academy, was certainly an exciting driver to watch at Oulton Park. Not always for the right reasons. Garlick and Martin Thomas share row number 4 of the grid. Row 5, John Kearney and Peter Mangiam. And then at the back of the grid, Dan Reeves. So lots of new names on the grid who weren't out with us at Oulton Park, and that's always exciting. It means that you don't really know what the form book is like coming into the 2 races here at Silverstone. Onboard camera with Harry Mangan then for Raceway Motorsport, 4th on the grid for car number 44. He will start. That's the outside of row number 2, because it's a rolling start. Actually, if it's a standing start here at Silverstone, or in, well, yes, particularly Silverstone on the national pit straight, then pole position's on the outside line, because that's the grippier racing line. But rolling start, they give pole position to the inside line. Matt Shaw will be starting on the inside of row 3, therefore, from 5th on the grid, aboard car number 33. This car was in the wars at Oulton Park, but was ultimately rapid all weekend long. The big story out of qualifying, though, really, was Garlick struggling, only 7th on the grid. Now, conditions may have played a part in that, but Garlick 2nd in the championship. I know it's early days, I know he's got dropped scores that could rescue him a bit later in the season, but he won't want to be giving points away to Mckenzie and Luke on the front row if he can help it. So he is definitely one to watch for, I think, in the number 63 car. Connor was the winner of that 3rd race in the end at Oulton, and will be determined to try and get on terms with his 2 sparring partners on the opening rounds of the season. So on board with Harry Mangan then, as he makes his way towards the Wellington Straight, weaving around to try and get some heat into these slick racing tyres, and to try and get a good start. We've seen before, actually, even though in theory rolling starts should sort of negate any big advantage or disadvantage off the line, we have seen in the GT Academy race earlier on today some big movement in the running order in the first half a lap or so. So we'll see if the same is true here. Certainly Garlick will be hoping that's the case, coming through from 7th on the grid. But Luke Garlick would very much like it if there were no lead changes in this race, if he could convert pole position into a race victory. That would go down very, very well indeed. Harry Mangin's car, by the way, has a striking resemblance to that of Luke Reed that was one of the strongest drivers on the grid last year. I don't know if it is his old car. Try and find out before the weekend is out. We ride on board with that number 44 briefly as we head through Woodcote. The Ginetta safety car is in the pit lane, and we are good to go then with round number 4 of the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship. Lights out, down towards Copse Corner they head, and Luke Garlick in the black car on the inside line tries to hold on to the advantage. Mckenzie Douglass, though, tries to tough it out around the outside. Track limits, question mark, for Ben McKenna and for Harry Mangin, who both run very wide out of Copse Corner. We're on board with Mangin, but at the front of the field it is Garlick ahead of Mckenzie Douglass, side by side for third. That's Shaw over the curb on the inside line. That's almost contact. He just avoids it though, and that was Ben McKenna that he was side by side with, still is side by side with, as we head through the latter part of the Beckett's complex. But Matt Shaw offline, new livery on that car for this weekend, and it's looking good, but he might now have a few witness marks on it because he leans on Harry Mangin, who'd lost a position or two from where he started, and Harry is the big loser there, ends up on the grass down the hanger straight. Here comes Connor Garlick now, looking up the inside of Matt Shaw, who's already making friends. There's a screech of tyres as somebody, in fact it might have been Connor Garlick there, gets his braking all wrong at Stowe Corner. Right on board now with the man at second place in the early championship as he drops down through the Vale and into the club chicane. Matt Shaw this time is the one who misses his braking point, runs out wide. And Connor Garlick looks to try and get the momentum down the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight and maybe mount a challenge into Abbey Corner. Leading 4, though, as a result of that battle for 5th place, are getting away. Luke Garlick leads, Mckenzie Douglass second, Nick White in 3rd position, and up to 4th and 6th on the grid is Ben McKenna. Shaw there in 5th place, 6th for Connor Garlick, so only 1 place gained so far for the Oulton Park race winner. And he has got Kearney, I think that is behind him, isn't it? John Kearney, who started 9th, having gained a few positions. Here comes Connor Garlick up the inside of Matt Shaw. That is a typical Silverstone lunge into the loop. Parks the car on the apex. Matt Shaw ultimately can't quite get the switchback. And so Connor Garlick does now progress into 5th place. So out onto the Wellington straight then, on board with Matt Shaw. Bonnet buffering there in the turbulent air as he heads down towards the final couple of corners on the lap. And a lively opening lap of racing, definitely. And a sign, hopefully, of what is to come now as we move into the middle part of the race. 1 lap completed, we're already over 2 minutes into it, but it is going to be an opening lap led from pole position by Luke Garlick, then Mckenzie Douglass in 2nd position. Luke, remember, is only 13 points off the championship leader, so wants to try and eat into that margin if he can this weekend, going the right way about it so far. Shaw, meanwhile, running 6th overall. That is 2nd of the AMs. Within the Ginetta GT Championship, the drivers are split into a Pro and an AM category. So the Pros on your timing tower on the left-hand side of the screen with the numbers with the white background, the AMs with the orange background. So you can see it's Nick White who leads the class. He sits 3rd overall. Matt Shaw, you're on board with, is 6th in the overall running order, but 2nd in class. And John Kearney is the next car behind him, about 8/10 adrift at the line, running in a class podium at the moment. Down towards Stowe Corner, onto the brakes, the noses dip aggressively under braking. Always interesting now when you get the head-on shot, particularly into a big braking zone. You can see some cars dip a bit more than others. That usually suggests that they've gone for a slightly softer setup and perhaps sort of alludes to what their mindset is, setup-wise, going into the race, how they like their car to be balanced. Pretty similar, though, you'd have to say, at least amongst the front-running group, which is still headed by Luke Garlick then, down past the international pit lane. Full commitment into Abbey Corner. You really throw these cars in. Quite a bit of body roll for quite a car with quite a low centre of gravity. It still moves around a lot on quite soft suspension. McKenna there looking racy as well. Pulls then towards the left-hander at the loop and accelerates onto the grass, in fact, is where he accelerates. That wasn't the best run for Ben McKenna, who just dipped it onto the grassy runoff area there. But, no major harm done, bit of dirt on the tyres, but he'll regroup and try his best now to close back in on the group of cars ahead. There goes the number 44 of Harry Mangin as he heads through Luffield Corner, 5th place within the Pro category, the last actually of the Pros, running 7th place overall. Across the line we go. Luke Garlick still leading the way. Mckenzie Douglass in second position. Nick White, the AM leader, is third. Ben McKenna fourth. Remember, it was Scott McKenna who was in that car at Oulton Park, and he was right in the mix all weekend long. Led a lot of laps, and shame that he's not around for the full season, actually, because that would have been a fascinating battle to see whether he could have won the championship, maybe. But Ben McKenna jumping in his place for the Silverstone round. There he is, car number 27, there he is, fourth position. Still really recovering from that moment that he had at the loop, isn't he? Crossed the line 1.3 seconds adrift of Nick White, and doesn't really appear to be closing in at all on the first part of this lap. We'll get the first sector times in very shortly, because sector 1 ends at the end of the Hanger Straight, and yeah, actually a tenth or two slower than Nick White through the first part of the lap is Ben. Kicks up a bit of dirt there on the apex of Stowe Corner. Drops down through the Vale. Nick White, another driver to have moved up, of course, from the GT Academy, as has Matt Shaw, where those two were regularly sharing the same bit of racetrack last year. Matt just taking a bit longer maybe to get to grips with the much more powerful Ginetta GT Championship spec G56, running on slick tyres as well. That's a big difference for a driver of Matt's relative inexperience. But I do still expect it to be a pretty interesting tussle between he and Nick White for the AM Championship this year. That's going to be very, very nip and tuck between them. There are well, Nick White is 15 points up in the championship at the moment. He's 63 ahead of Matt Shaw, because Matt had a couple of non-finishes at Oulton. Dropped scores. He's still got a chance, definitely. Just needs to try and bank some points this weekend and just try and learn, try and get quicker as he goes. So as we saw at Oulton, very evenly matched, the leading group. There's not really anything to choose between the lap times or the sector times. Luke Garlick, as the race leader, set the fastest lap last time around. That was the first full flying lap of the race, a 2:14.49. Interestingly, that is actually slower by over a second than his pole position time, so it obviously was a dry track for qualifying this morning. What can he do this time around? A 14.3, that seems to be his pace, doesn't it? A low to mid 14, 3/4 of a second up the road now from Mckenzie Douglass, who was 3/10 slower than him. Douglass was only fractionally quicker than Nick White, who was, in the end, fractionally slower than Ben McKenna, but Douglass, White and McKenna all within half a tenth of each other that time around, lap time-wise. There goes the number 75, that is Martin Thomas. Now, he started 8th, he's dropped down to 10th place, and in danger of losing touch with the main pack, really. Very back, Dan Reeve, number 56, bringing up the rear. The leader heads down towards Stowe Corner. Again, you can see there that his nose dips perhaps slightly less aggressively than that of Mckenzie Douglass in second. So Douglass's car maybe set up with slightly softer suspension. Now, why would a driver do that? Well, it helps with that initial rotation of the car into a corner like Stowe. Silverstone has lots of these sort of long, low to medium speed corners, and racing cars all have a bit of a tendency sometimes to develop a bit of understeer, particularly once the tyres start to wear out. These are longish races as well, 25 minutes. So sometimes having that slightly softer front suspension, it just generates a bit more initial rotation. The car dives down, it transfers the weight over onto the front axle a bit more effectively. But it can sometimes then lead to a bit more understeer on corner exit, but it's clearly the setup that Douglass likes. The Fox Motorsport team know what they're doing, that's for sure. They've run Ginettas for a number of years now across One Make Ginetta Racing, and Mckenzie Douglass, a very, very reliable pair of hands. Just losing touch now with Luke Garlick on this lap. At the start of the lap, it was 3/4 of a second between the two of them. It is now, as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, just over 1.1 seconds. Nick White, though, is not getting any closer. The man on the move is the 5th place man, Conor Garlick, isn't it? Because he is closing in on McKenna ahead. So Conor Garlick for 4th place is a possibility before much longer. Matt Shaw here also sort of tagging along with him, really. And doing his best to, anyway. Can't actually see Conor Garlick because he's hidden by the rear view mirror, but there he is off in the distance. That's the gap to the top 5. More importantly, Shaw wanting to try and get a bit closer to Nick White, the class leader who runs 3rd overall. Ben McKenna, by the way, being warned about track limits, so not only is he being caught by Conor Garlick, but he's exceeding track limits. So exceeding track limits but not going any quicker, that's sort of lose-lose, isn't it, really? Right on board with Conor Garlick now, who has very much set his sights on the number 27 car. You score points within your class here, so Nick White running in 3rd place they can sort of ignore, actually, these two. They're basically fighting for a podium, certainly as far as the points are concerned. Third place in the Pro class. There's no doubt at this stage who the quicker of the two is. Conor Garlick just did a 14.5, which was actually quicker than the three drivers ahead of him, Douglas, White and McKenna. 4 tenths, well, 3.5 tenths, let's say, slower than Luke Garlick, the race leader. So Luke definitely the pace setter out of the two of them so far. Matt Shaw's going to have a headache by the end of this race, I think, not only because of all of the action he was involved in at the start, but the amount of buffeting that he had on that car heading down the Hanger Straight. I've no idea what's causing that. It's not that bumpy here at Silverstone. That is one of the bumpier parts of the track in the big braking zone down at Stowe, but not that bumpy. So see if it does it again down there. We'll find out maybe later on whether it does it again down the international pit straight. Certainly that won't have been helping his visibility, would it? Sighting the braking point and the turning point for Stowe. Maybe that explains why he's dropping away now from this fight for fourth, which is about to ignite because Ben McKenna was perhaps just moving to cover into Village, and that means that he just locked the rear axle slightly into the corner. Conor Garlick wants the inside of the loop, but Ben McKenna won't give it to him. Dives to the inside to cover. That means that now on the exit of the turn, look at that, Conor Garlick, he can open the steering, he can get on the loud pedal a little bit earlier and carry an extra mile an hour or so through the kink at Aintree and sit in the slipstream. Is there a move coming into Brooklands? He's close enough, I think, to jink out of the toe and try and make the move, but McKenna knew it, moved to the inside line to defend. Just on the cusp of reactive defensive driving that, I think, from McKenna. It wasn't too late. Any later, and I think Conor Garlick may have already committed to the move. Again, Garlick with a wider line into Luffield, gets off the corner better. McKenna is mirror driving though, isn't he? There's no doubt about it, as he moves and jinks over to the inside line through Woodcote. Not to defend from the move there, really, but to try and stop Garlick getting up the inside into Stowe, which he will do. But with the wider line in, is Conor Garlick going to have more momentum on corner exit? There's a bit of a snap of oversteer on corner entry, and he just drifts wide of track limits as a result. Had to lift out of the throttle slightly, ducks back in line behind McKenna, but this fourth place battle ain't over yet. Through Maggots and Beckett's, then through the left, the right, another left. These corners get progressively longer and progressively tighter as you work your way through. Really working those front tyres hard before accelerating flat out through Chapel down the Hanger Straight. Garlick just absolutely desperate to try and find a way through here into fourth position, but that is not proving easy. And of course, as they do now start to battle, Matt Shaw is actually gaining on them. He did a 14.9. That was a full second quicker than Ben McKenna that time. So Matt Shaw in sixth position, starting to buy into this scrap as well. The lead gap, by the way, is 2 seconds, Luke Garlick to Mckenzie Douglass, but Douglass to White is still only 1.2. They're matching each other 10 for 10, really, Douglass and White, which is particularly impressive for Nick White. Bear in mind, he is one of the AM drivers, mainly because he's had significantly less experience racing full stop, really, than Luke Garlick or definitely Mckenzie Douglass ahead of him. But Nick White is performing well beyond his expectations, I would say, right now. Here's his nearest AM competitor, Matt Shaw, 6th place overall, with a grandstand view now of this 4th place battle going on in front of him. Again, even if he got past these two, it wouldn't actually score him any more points, but it would get him closer to Nick White. And looking ahead to the later races this weekend, tomorrow's race, one of the races they have, the closer he can start to Nick White, then the more chance he's got of perhaps challenging for an AM class victory. Nick White won 2 of the AM class races at Oulton Park, but it was actually Matt Shaw victorious in race 1, so he won the first race in the class, but then didn't score in the other 2. Got a point for fastest lap, I think, in race 3 before a late clash at Lodge Corner took him out of the race. So Matt Shaw knows that he can challenge Nick for that championship. The closer he can start to Nick for race 2, the more chance he's got of taking some points out of him. Leaders go through, the lead gap is growing by about 4 tenths a lap, really, pretty metronomically now. 2.5 seconds the margin. Luke Garlick back to Mckenzie Douglass. As we head into Cops Corner on board with Harry Mangin. Now don't forget, Harry started 4th and is only 7th at the moment, so his fastest lap in qualifying was a 14.2. His fastest lap in the race so far, 14.9. Although no one is going as quickly as they were in qualifying, so track conditions have changed, but not for the better, it would seem. I know that they will go a little bit slower in the race generally than they did in qualifying. They might not be on brand new tyres as they would have been for qualifying, but it's surprising to see so many of them so far away from the pace that they showed this morning. A bit more rubber on the track, which will in theory speed things up, but does Doesn't seem to be working that way. Wiggle under braking there for Mckenzie Douglass, but still the main attraction in this race is the fight for fourth, Ben McKenna and Connor Garlick. Connor, who had a win and a second place last time out at Oulton. Trying now to get himself maybe back, or certainly into class podium position. And if he gets past McKenna, might even be able to head off after Nick White before the race is done. Through towards the braking zone at Village. Heat on the brakes, peeking up the inside line. Is this the opportunity maybe to the inside of the loop? I think it might be, but Ben McKenna, oh, didn't dare turn in actually. Connor Garlick showed just enough of his nose to the inside line that it sort of spooked McKenna. He didn't turn into the apex, and Garlick hammering the curbs there through Aintree. But by taking the tighter, shorter line through Aintree, he actually is slower off the corner, so still McKenna hangs on. Connor Garlick getting a bit frustrated though. Is there another lunge into Brooklands? No, because McKenna dives to the early apex, backs the car in. Brilliant car control from Ben McKenna, who still will not relinquish fourth position, but he is driving a very defensive race. Connor Garlick though now perhaps showing that frustration there, just drifts a bit wide, bit of a mistake off Luffield, kicks up the dirt. It won't have slowed him down massively, but just leaves him a little bit of that momentum heading past the pits. 7 laps completed, still 9 minutes to try and get the job done, but look, he turns into Copse Corner, and perhaps because he dipped that left rear wheel into the gravel at Luffield, it didn't then give him the grip that he was expecting into Copse. Had a big snap of oversteer. That's what a dirty tyre will do for you. You might think in the amount of time between Luffield and Copse that it would have cleaned itself up, but these tyres are so hot, so sticky, that that dirt will, well, stick to the tyre for quite a long time. Cleaned itself up now though. He's got good grip as he heads out onto the hanger straight, but is he close enough to try and make a move into Stowe Corner? You won't get a massive slipstream effect in these cars, not like the G40s that Connor Garlick has raced in the past. You can see that there, didn't really gain anything, did he? Down the straight. It was a dab on the brakes mid-corner there for McKenna actually, and again on the exit, worried maybe about pad knockoff, which is something caused generally by hitting curbs a bit too hard, but actually violent slides and side-to-side movements can cause the brake pads to just come away from the brake discs slightly, so you just dab the brake quickly to make sure they're back in position for the next big braking zone. But he was doing it mid-corner through Stowe, which I don't think was fully intentional. But Ben McKenna, so far, is driving well, actually. I've not seen him do anything dangerous yet. He's defending well within the rules. That won't be reducing the frustration felt by our onboard camera carrier, Connor Garlick, who again just can't get to the inside of the loop. That's his best chance to make a move, but he's almost getting too close too early, and McKenna knows the attack is coming, so hovers around on the inside line, not leaving an opening for Connor. I almost feel that if Connor just backed off a little bit through Abbey and carried that momentum through Village, he might be able to surprise him a bit more. What about Brooklands? No, not close enough. Of course, the other option here is that Connor Garlick says, right, Ben McKenna is presumably not in this for the whole championship campaign. The car ahead of them is an AM runner, the car behind them is an AM runner. Oh, it's not really worth making a mistake and throwing away good points, but I don't think that is how Connor Garlick is thinking. He was in the gravel even more that time than he had been a lap ago. He is definitely pushing hard to try and get this fourth place overall, third in class. Unsure as to whether McKenna is scoring points though, being, again, not a full-time driver. Certainly last time out at Oulton Park, Scott McKenna didn't score points, so I presume it's the same case for Ben, really. The man who's enjoying this the most, I think, really, is Matt Shaw, because every time those two get together, he takes another chunk of time out of them. On the last lap, did a 15.7, only actually a 10th quicker than McKenna, who has an exclamation mark next to his name on the timing tower. Now, there's actually been, oh yes, there is a 5-second penalty. It's just come up, so a 5-second penalty for car 27 for exceeding track limits. So that is Ben McKenna, a 5-second penalty applied. There is the confirmation on the screen, and that is a shame, because actually this battle now is almost for naught. Connor Garlick definitely doesn't need to try and take any big risks now, trying to reclaim the lead, or not the lead, sorry, third place in class, fourth place overall. He can now just afford to sit behind if that message has got to him that there's a penalty for the car ahead. and just bring this one home. Again, the point I was starting to make is that the car behind him is an AM driver as well, so even if Matt Shaw did get ahead, it wouldn't cost Connor any points. This is where he always seems to close in though, through Village. Got too much of that sausage curve that time on the inside line, so doesn't even think about the inside at the loop. At the moment, he's certainly still trying to find a way through, isn't he? Not settling for anything. I suspect he probably won't settle, even if he does know that there's a penalty for McKenna, because there's a point to be proved now. He wants to prove that he can overtake Ben and get this on the track. But perhaps won't be taking quite as many risks as he has been. Really see there as they turn into Brooklands, the front axle working hard as the drivers are soaring away at the wheel. On corner entry, you can see the front wheel sort of waggling side to side. They really work the front of the car hard, trying to get it pitched into the corner. The tyres will be well past their best by now, so drivers really have to change the way they drive, really, in the closing stages. Now, here's a good battle. This is only for 9th position, but it's for 4th place in class. It's Peter Mangan in the number 22 car, just ahead of Martin Thomas, number 75. And they are fighting for 4th in class, but honestly, that doesn't really matter, does it? It's just a position on track that Mangan has, and Thomas wants to take from him. Round Woodcote they go then, down towards Copse Corner. 4 minutes left on the clock, so time for another couple of laps here. And can Thomas find a way through? I wonder. It is 9th overall that they're battling for, as I said. But very evenly matched in the closing stage. Is Conor Garlick still buzzing around like a really annoying wasp in the summer, trying to find a way past Ben McKenna. He's tried, I'm not going to say everything, he's tried an awful lot of different routes through. None of them have yielded any success just yet. Defensive line from McKenna into the club chicane. His car just really doesn't look planted, but he's parking it on the apex. He's placing it perfectly just to prevent Conor Garlick from getting that momentum through the corner and off the corner, more importantly, down the next straight. So a masterclass in defensive driving this really from Ben McKenna, and he deserves, in a way, to hang on to 4th place. But of course, if Conor Garlick can break through the defences, it will be a very well-earned position for him as well. Another dab on the brakes there, just a comfort dab on the brakes to make sure the brakes are going to work into Village. This time Conor Garlick a bit further back, sort of what I was saying a lap or two ago. If he can surprise Ben McKenna, just be a length further back maybe into the loop, then Ben might not defend. But of course, he doesn't need to defend really, because he's that bit further ahead. So Conor, I'm not convinced he's going to make the move at the loop, which is one of several places you can try and make a pass, but certainly one of the more effective ones. On board with Shaw. See there, Conor Garlick hopping the curve through Brooklands. The hands on the wheel, he's lifting his middle finger up very daintily on the steering wheel, but that's just to help with the feel of the car. And it shows that actually you don't have to have a heavy grip on the wheel. A nice light grip will give you a bit more control, actually, make you a bit less twitchy. Smoother inputs mean that you keep the car pointing in a straighter line through the corners. So good stuff there from Matt Shaw, who's had a lot of coaching on his very short racing career, which obviously worked because he was the runaway winner of the rookie class in the GT Academy last year. This battle's still raging on as well between Peter Mangan and Martin Thomas. Thomas started 2 positions ahead of Mangan on the grid, but was actually only about 2.5 tenths quicker than him, so unsurprising maybe to see them together so closely in the race. Thomas rounds Copse Corner though, just not quite able to make a meaningful move, as we've seen between McKenna and Garlick. Getting close on the track doesn't guarantee that you're going to be able to make the positional swap. Through the winding sequence of corners they go. See how they don't use quite as much of the curve as some of the pro drivers do up near the front, just driving within their limits, not wanting to take any big risks. Heading down through Stowe Corner, you can see you drop down quite steeply through the middle of the straight, and then it's actually quite an uphill run into the corner. That goads you in, just allows you to carry a little bit more speed into the turn than otherwise would be possible. Again, drop downhill into the Vale. We don't think of Silverstone, I don't think, as a particularly undulating circuit, and certainly by the standards of an Oulton Park or a Donington or a Brands Hatch, it's not, but there are some elevation changes which you can use to your advantage in some cases. Garlick then leads the way down through Brooklands. I think he's going to get one more lap out of this, so it's going to be a 12-lap race. But Luke won't mind that. They could run for 12 hours for all he cares. He's obviously got the better of the rest of the field in this race, at least. In qualifying, he might have only had a 10th in hand over Mckenzie Douglass, but he's had more than that on each lap of the race to pull out to what is going to be now probably over a 3-second lead as they go on to the final lap. Well, actually, no, 2.5 seconds. He's backed it off now slightly. So Douglass was a couple of tenths faster that time. Nick White, meanwhile, in third place, is now being caught by McKenna and Garlick. 1.2 seconds between White and McKenna, who was about 6 tenths quicker that time. So if that sort of pace continues for these two drivers on the final lap, he's going to get there. But White might just be fading a bit in the closing stages. He's got the speed of the pros, definitely, but it's whether or not he can keep the life in the tyres over not just a race, but a weekend as well, because they're limited on the amount of tyres that they can use in the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship. So you have to make the sets of tyres last. You don't just stick a fresh set on for every session. So in this race, Nick White looking good and keeping pace with the pros, but is he taking more life out of his tyres, and might that mean that later on in the weekend in race 2, perhaps isn't quite able to live with them? We'll have to wait and see tomorrow. The Ginetta GT Championship next heads onto the track. Before that, we've got this battle for fourth to, well, sort of come to its conclusion, but actually in a way it's already come to its conclusion, hasn't it? Because we know Ben McKenna got this 5-second penalty. As long as Conor Garlick doesn't throw it away here, he will inherit third place in class anyway. He's got well away from Matt Shaw now, who was 1.1 seconds back at the start of the lap, but had a really slow first and second sector actually. So Conor Garlick under no pressure. If he wants to throw something else at Ben McKenna here, he can. This is where he's looked the most likely to make the move, and this time he might just commit to the inside, but McKenna slams the door in his face, as he's done on more than one occasion already. Conor Garlick just can't wriggle through. It's been a terrific battle, this. It is a shame that McKenna's got this penalty, actually, because it does sort of take the shine off the battle a little bit, but does bode well for tomorrow, doesn't it, when they will do this all over again. Luke Garlick, though, has not really had much of a battle on his hands here, really, beyond the first corner, where he bettered his fellow front-row star to Mckenzie Douglass for the race lead. From pole position, it is going to be a light-to-flag victory in round number 4 of the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship for Luke Garlick, who claims the checkered flag here at Silverstone. Mckenzie Douglass comes home in second, 2.3 seconds in the end, the winning margin. And Nick White in third is your AM class winner. It's a drag race to the line for the second event in a row. Conor Garlick involved in one of those. He finishes behind Ben McKenna on the road, but on corrected times inherits 4th place after McKenna's 5-second track limits penalty. And actually that was pretty costly, because Matt Shaw inherits 5th and Harry Mangan goes 6th. So McKenna ends up 7th and last of the pro drivers. That won't go down very well at all. John Kearney is going to come home in 8th position, and this battle for 9th is still to be resolved. 4th place in the AM class up for grabs. Remember, it's been a good defensive drive this so far from Peter Mangan, and I don't think that Martin Thomas is going to have anything left to throw at him as they run flat out through Woodcote Corner, and Mangan is going to come home 9th overall, 4th in class, with Thomas in behind him. So, Luke Garlick wins, in the end, a fairly sedate opening race of the weekend for the Ginetta GT Championship. The start proved critical there, I think. Had Mckenzie Douglass got past Luke Garlick at the start, we could have had a very different race, but Mckenzie will be able to regroup and reassess the situation before tomorrow's second race, maybe figure out a way to get that track position advantage for himself. Nick White, though, had a pretty quiet run in the end as well to the win in the AM class, and, well, AM class victory, yes, but 3rd overall. That is massively impressive for Nick White. We saw him troubling the podium at Oulton Park. I don't recall him getting onto the outright podium. Obviously had success within the amateur category, which is why he's got a 15-point lead after those 2 wins and a 2nd place, but I don't recall him finishing in the top 3 overall, so that's a real step forward in performance from him. Very, very pleased with that. Luke Garlick then victorious for Xentek Motorsport, Fox Motorsport 2nd with Mckenzie Douglass and Raceway Motorsport, and Nick White making 3 different teams on the outright podium, with Nick of course claiming the AM class victory. Then it was Conor Garlick in 4th ahead of Matt Shaw, the 2nd of the AM's home. Harry Mangan inherited 6th after Ben McKenna's post-race penalty knocked him down 4 positions to 7th. John Kearney was 8th, Peter Mangan was 9th, with Martin Thomas in the end not quite able to find a way past him. He finishes 10th ahead of Dan Reed in 11th. So race 1 in books for the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship. They will have another race tomorrow, due to start at around about 20 past 4 in the afternoon. There'll be one more race apiece for our Ginetta Championships tomorrow, so a slightly quieter weekend than normal. The opening race then of the Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship saw a lights to flag victory in the end from Luke Garlick, who started from pole, got the better of his fellow front row starter Mckenzie Douglass, into turn 1, and never looked back. It was a bit of a messy start for Ben McKenna. He ran wide at Cobb's Corner, but managed to get himself back into 4th place after a terrific early tussle with Matt Shaw, who was desperate to try and stay ahead of McKenna and go after his AM-class rival Nick White. In the end, McKenna got the better of him though, and Matt Shaw then set about trying to defend from the number 44 machine of Harry Mangian, which he did rather robustly. Front of the field, Mckenzie Douglass tried everything he could to keep up with the leader, but to no avail, whilst Connor Garlick was trying everything he could do to find a way past Ben McKenna. After a disappointing qualifying effort, Connor got him to 5th place pretty quickly, but just could not get through the very robust defence set by Ben McKenna. Nick White was running well, 3rd place overall, got the victory in the AM category in the end, whilst a track limits penalty would knock McKenna off the pro podium. A podium that was headed though by Luke Garlick, victorious here at Silverstone in race number 1.